Hello, Algebra 2 students. We're back again today to work with some more absolute value problems. We're going to work with actually formulating or creating the equations from a word problem, and then we'll probably do some solving as well. So let me pull these up. You'll remember this one hopefully from Friday, or maybe it was Thursday, I'm not sure what day, about pretzels. And it says to write and solve an equation that deals with the amount of pretzels. The amount of pretzels a snack food company fills each bag with must be within 3 pretzels of 100 pretzels expected per bag. A quality control inspector must ensure the bags are adequately filled. Let P be the number of pretzels in each bag. Why do we care how many pretzels are in the bag? If you're the customer and you're supposed to have 100 and you're paying for 100 pretzels, you don't want to get a bag with 50 or 20 or even 80. If you get 98, you might be all right with that. Or if you get 102, you got a bonus, right? If you're the company that's manufacturing these pretzels, if you're charging based on 100 pretzels and your machine is putting in 120 or 150 or 200, then you're going to lose money. Actually, if they're putting in 105 or 110, you're losing money. If they're putting in 103, you're losing money. So you want it to be as close to that 100 as you can. And this company has decided that the acceptable number within of that 100 is 3. So it can be as high as 3 over or as low as 3 under. So we talked about last week that we would write that equation as the difference between the number of pretzels and the expected number equals 3. And we put the absolute value because that indicates that this difference can be 3 over or it can be 3 under. Okay, so that is called formulating the equation when you take the word problem and turn it into equation. Where did the P come from? P is the actual number. Got to remember to try to leave room for my webcam here. I think if I put it in the top corner. So what's P? P is the actual number. What's 100? 100 is the expected number. And the 3 is the over or under. Because we can have as many as 3 over, as many as 3 under, and still meet the guidelines. Okay? So that's how one way you can formulate an equation. You take the difference. What math operation indicates difference is subtract. So we have the difference between the actual number and the expected number equals 3. Now, how would we solve that? So I'm going to erase this part so we have room to solve it. Here's my equation. The difference between the actual number and the expected number, the absolute value of the difference between the actual number and the expected number is 3. I'm going to get it here in a minute. Okay, there we go. Now, if we're going to solve that, some of you can do that in your head. If it can go as many as 3 over, how many can we have? We have 103. If we can have as few as 3 under, what's 3 under 100 is 97. Think about what you know about absolute value equations. Isolate the absolute value, split it into 2 equations, solve it, add 100 here, add 100 here. Okay. So when you're talking about absolute value, usually it's talking about an over-under number. Like in this case, it was 3 pretzels, as many as 3 over, as few as 3 under. The over-under number goes on the outside of the absolute value bar on the other side of the equal sign. This is the over-under. Sometimes it's worded as give or take. Sometimes it's worded as over-under, but that number goes on the outside of the absolute value after the equal sign. Okay, Let's do another one. Number 2 says Travis runs an average of 25 miles per week, give or take 6 miles. Let M be the number of miles Travis runs each week. So what's our over-under number? Our give or take number is 6. We said that goes after the equal sign. Inside the absolute value is the difference between the number of miles Travis runs and the average, which is 25. Where'd the 6 come from? That's the give or take. That means he might run as many as 6 more than the 25, or he might run as few as 6 underneath that 25. So the M is the number of miles he runs, 25 is his average, and the number of miles he actually runs might be as many as 6 over or as few as 6 under. Now, if we're going to solve that, what would we do? We'd split it into 2. Add 25 to both sides. Add 25 here. Negative 6 plus 25 is 19. So the fewest he would run if this equation is accurate, if this problem is accurate, the fewest he would run would be 19. And the most he would run would be 31 if he's staying within 6 miles of his average. Okay. Where's the over-under number go? The over-under number goes after the equal sign. It's the 6. What's the 25? That's the average. What's M? The number of miles he actually runs. And why do we use subtract? Because we want the difference between the actual miles and the average. Okay. All right, now we're getting into the big boy problems. So you hike 1.2 miles west from a trailhead and then receive a text from your friend. She is X miles west of the trailhead. You hike to meet her, then you both hike back to where you left off the trail. You hike 2.7 miles total. I need a picture. You need a picture? You know what a trailhead is? The trailhead is the beginning of the trail. So if you're hiking west from the trailhead, let's call this the trailhead. If we hike west from there, what do we say? 1.2 miles. This is where you are when you get your text from your friend. She is X miles west, so that's the same direction. So she's gone the same direction from the beginning of the trail, but we don't know if she's here or if she's here. Okay? We don't know if she's ahead of you or behind you. You might can figure that out from your conversation, but what if she doesn't tell you? You need to, so you're going to hike back to your friend. You've hiked 1.2 miles already. You're going to hike to meet your friend, and then you're going back to where you started at that 1.2. So you're either going to go this distance and back, or you're going to go this distance and back. What do we know about our total is 2.7. We know at first you hiked 1.2 miles. You remember how in the other absolute value problems we had a difference between something? Here we have a difference between where your friend's at and where you're at. How many miles she is from the trailhead, how many miles you are from the trailhead. How many times did we hike that distance? You either hiked this way and back, or you hiked this way and back. So we hiked that distance twice. And there's an absolute value equation that you can use to find out how far your friend is from the trailhead. Now, where did these numbers come from? This is, you hiked 1.2 miles west. That's this 1.2. This is the difference between you and your friend. This because you went there and back. And this was the total. Okay, so do you know where all those numbers came from? You hiked 1.2 miles, then you hiked to one of those X's to meet your friend. We don't know if you went back east or if you kept going west. We don't know which direction. But you hiked that distance twice because you met your friend, then you took your friend back to where you started. And so far, your total is 2.7. Now, let's solve this. I'm going to go to a clear background. Take these off. Here was our equation. 2 was 1.2 plus 2 times the difference between where your friend's at and where you're at. So our first step in solving absolute value is to isolate the absolute value. So first I'm going to subtract 1.2. These cancel out or zero out. This is going to be 1.5. So we have 2 times the absolute value of x minus 1.2. How do I get the absolute value by itself? Right now it's multiplied by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2. So now I have x minus 1.2 absolute value equals 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. Move the decimal. 0.75. A mile and a half divided by 2 is 3/4 of a mile. Okay, use calculator, use Siri, something to do that calculation. Now, we have the absolute value isolated. Now we need to split it and make it x minus 1.2 equals 7.75. I'm running out of room. And x minus 1.2 equals negative 0.75. Add 1.2. So this side's going to be 1.95. Add 1.2. And this side's going to be 0.45. So your friend is either 0.45 miles from the beginning of the trail or 1.95 miles from the beginning of the trail. All right, let's keep going. Absolute value equations. Formulating and solving. There's 2 more of those. I think we're just going to do one. If you're still having trouble, you can go back and watch it again. This one says you and your friends Jose and Sarah live on the same street. You know that Jose lives 7 blocks from you. Jose says Sarah lives 5 blocks from him, but he didn't say whether she lives closer to you than further. Excuse me. Let M represent the number of blocks you and Sarah might live. So let's, again, a picture helps. Here's your street. Here's your home. And then you have Jose. And we know that this distance from home to Jose is 7 blocks. Now, we don't know where Sarah is for sure. We know that Sarah lives 5 blocks from Jose. So either here, and that would be 5, or here, and that would be 5. Okay, it's one or the other. So how are we going to figure out the number of blocks that Sarah would be from your house? Okay, so let's put the difference between the number of blocks that Sarah lives from you and the 7 is 5, right? Because it might be a plus. Here's 7 blocks, and it might be plus 5 more, or it might be minus 5 more. That's why that 5 goes over here. Do you understand that? From home to Jose's house is 7 blocks. And Sarah's either going to live 5 miles this way or 5 blocks, sorry, not miles, 5 blocks this way or 5 blocks that way. So there's nothing to isolate. So if I solve it, m minus 7 equals 5. Add the 7, and you get 12. Does that make sense? If she lives over here 5 blocks past Jose, there's 7 plus add 5 more, that's 12. But what if she lives closer to you than Jose? Then that m minus 7 would be negative 5. And add the 7, and that would be 2. And it makes sense if Jose is 7 blocks from you, and you go 5 blocks this way, then that's going to be 2 blocks from you. Absolute value. Put your difference between the actual, what you know, and what you don't know, in the absolute value. The over or under number, plus 5 or minus 5, goes after the equal sign. All right, you have a Schoology quiz to do to kind of go over some of these equations like this. Go back and watch this again if you want. If you need further help, email me.